was a time in my life when I stopped reading and writing consistently. And I noticed that my thinking started to become muddled. I'd managed to pick up a few popular nonfiction works throughout the years. But even as I read them, I came away feeling a little lost and empty, and feeling like something was off. I'd finish the book, enjoy it even. But for the life of me, when I walked away, I could barely remember the central ideas that were outlined in the book. And sometimes I would even fail to remember not just the title, but the author as well. So I started to wonder, how is it possible that someone who loves books so much, as you can see, my apartment is basically littered with them, how could someone who loved reading so much feel or end up feeling so disengaged from the very books that used to inspire them? And I came to realize that it was the way I was reading them. And I was and still am in some ways a terrible reader. So over the last 2 years, I have worked very hard to improve my reading habits. I'm still not where I want to be, or anywhere close, but as I've come to learn more about the habits that I had, I've come to see learning how to read and reading in general as an art that I had to relearn, even though I already knew how to read, quote unquote. And then it's an art that many of us have to learn and relearn. It's not about speed reading or checking books off of a list, but it's about truly understanding, engaging, and making the words on the page yours. So in this video, we're going to break down how you can become a better reader. We'll explore the different levels of reading, how to engage actively with a text, and why it's essential to read with purpose. The 1970s were dubbed the decade of reading. It is during this time that millions upon millions of dollars were poured into the country to improve reading skills across the nation. While the results were mixed, one thing was and still is clear. Reading was and is still a crucial skill for personal and intellectual growth. But here's the thing. Reading isn't a one-size-fits-all activity. To truly benefit from what you've read, you need to adjust your approach depending on the material that you're reading. Sometimes that means speeding up, and other times that means slowing down. As Blaise Pascal wisely noted, when we read too fast or too slowly, we understand nothing. Speed reading might help you boast about the number of books you've skimmed through, maybe on Book Talk, if any of you follow that, but it often misses the point of reading entirely. The real goal is to read better, to understand deeply, and to connect the material in a meaningful way. Unfortunately, our education system often stops focusing on reading development after the elementary level, leaving many people ill-equipped to handle more complex texts as they grow older. Modern media doesn't help much either. I mean, in an age of information overload, we're constantly bombarded with headlines, tweets, and sound bites, which encourage skimming rather than deep engagement and contemplation. This habit of skimming makes it easy to feel informed, but in reality, we've only just scratched the surface. And the result of this is that many of us end up reading passively and absorb information without truly understanding it. We might finish a book, an article, or even a tweet and move on, but the content doesn't stick with us because we haven't engaged with it on a deeper level. This brings us to the different levels of reading. Each requires a unique approach and mindset. And recognizing these levels and knowing when to apply them can significantly improve your reading skills and comprehension. They are elementary, inspectional, analytical, and syntopical reading. Let's start with level 1, elementary reading. Elementary reading is the most basic level of reading, where we learn to decode words and understand simple sentences. At this stage, the primary question you're answering is, what does the sentence say? This is the foundation of literacy and is usually developed during the early years of education, like 1st to 6th grade, hence the name elementary. For example, when you were younger, you might remember encountering sentences like, the cat sits on a hat. I mean, even as an adult, I'm still tempted to wonder if and why cats sit on hats. But at this level, you're not concerned with whether cats actually sit on hats or what the deeper meaning might be behind that sentence. You're focused on recognizing and reading the words. While mastering this stage is crucial, it is just the beginning. Unfortunately, many people's reading skills stagnate here, especially when they face more complex material later in life. Level 2, inspectional reading. Inspectional reading, also known as skimming, is about quickly grasping the gist of a book or passage. Here, you're asking, what is this book or text about? This level is particularly useful when you're short on time or you need to decide whether a text is worth a deeper dive. At this stage, you don't read every word carefully. Instead, you skim through the content, glance at chapter headings, subheadings, and key paragraphs to understand the overall structure and main points. It's like flipping through a magazine or browsing a book's table of contents before committing to a full read. While inspectional reading helps you get the main idea quickly, it doesn't offer the depth needed to fully comprehend or analyze complex material. Hence level 3, which is analytical reading. Analytical reading is the most intensive and thorough type of reading you can do. Here, the focus shifts to understanding what the text actually means. You're diving deep into the material, asking questions, and exploring why the author wrote what they did. For example, when reading a history book, like I am right now, you wouldn't just learn about the events. You'd also analyze the author's perspective, the sources they used, and how the book fits within the broader context of historical literature. Analytical reading requires time and effort, right? But it's essential for books that demand thoughtful consideration and analysis. This is where you truly engage with a text, challenge it, and allow it to challenge you. But there's an even higher level than that, which is synoptical reading, and it is the kind of reading I aspire to. It is comparative reading, right? It's also called comparative reading. It's the most complex and advanced level. It involves reading multiple texts on the same topic, comparing, contrasting, and then synthesizing the information. The goal isn't just to understand each individual text, but to integrate them in a broader view or to generate new insights on the subject. Imagine you're studying the Renaissance. Synoptical reading would involve reading several books on the era, then comparing the different perspectives, arguments, and interpretations presented by each author. It's about seeing how these texts converse with one another, identifying common themes, and recognizing where they diverge. This level pushes your analytical skills and imagination to the limit, as you're not just passively absorbing the information, you're actively engaging with multiple sources and using them to build your own understanding of the topic. So why are these levels important? Why do they even matter? Well, understanding these 4 levels of reading is crucial because it allows you to choose the right approach for the material in front of you. Not every book needs to be read analytically, but not every text really warrants a synoptical analysis either, or synoptical scrutiny. By knowing when to apply each level, you can read more efficiently and effectively, getting the most out of every text you encounter. Elementary reading helps you build the foundation, but inspectional reading allows you to grasp main points quickly. Analytical reading helps you to dig in deeper, and synoptical reading enables you to connect the dots across multiple sources. Each level builds upon the previous one, enhancing your skills and turning you into a more versatile reader. Also, understanding these levels allows you to learn how to distinguish between reading for information versus reading for understanding. In today's world, we're bombarded with information all the time, and it can feel like we're always learning. But it's important to know the difference between just picking up facts and actually understanding what we're reading. When you read for information, your goal is to collect facts, data, or specific details. This type of reading is quick and surface level, like skimming through the news or a news article to catch the latest ideas or headlines, or reading a blog post to get a quick answer. While this can be useful, it doesn't often lead to deep comprehension or insight. Imagine reading an article about the Renaissance. This example again because my mind is stuck on that era recently. You might pick up a few key dates, some major figures, and the general idea that it was a period of cultural rebirth. That's information. It's factual, straightforward, and usually easy to recall. But knowing those facts doesn't mean you truly understand the Renaissance or why it even happened. So let's contrast that with reading for understanding. When you read to understand, you're not just collecting data, you're engaging with the material on a deeper level. You're asking questions like, why did the Renaissance happen? What were the underlying causes and effects? How did it shape the world today? This type of reading requires you to connect the dots between facts, analyze the context, and reflect on the implications. Reading for understanding often feels slower and more challenging because it demands more from you as a reader. It demands patience overall, which is not my virtue, but you might have to go ahead and reread sections, look up additional information, or even pause to think critically about what you've read. This effort, however, is important because it transforms simple knowledge into meaningful understanding. Modern media often feeds us information in bite-sized chunks, creating the illusion of knowledge without substance. Werner Vogel, a writer and commentator known for his sharp insights on human behavior, sums it up perfectly when he said, "Many don't have an opinion until they're asked for it, at which point they cobble together a viewpoint from whim and half-remembered hearsay before deciding that this 2-minute-old makeshift opinion will be their new hill to die on." This captures how easily we mistake information for understanding, confusing fleeting familiarity with true insight. This phenomenon illustrates why reading for understanding is so crucial. It's not enough to simply collect information. You need to engage with it, challenge it, and see how it fits within the broader context of what you already know. This deeper level of reading allows you to develop your own perspectives rather than adopting someone else's at face value. So, how can you shift from reading for information to reading for understanding? Well, you start by slowing down. Don't rush through the text to get to the end. Pause and reflect on what you've read. Ask questions, make connections, and dive deeper into the material. Engage with the text as if you were having a conversation with the author. Question their points, consider and contemplate their arguments, and then form your own conclusions. Reading for understanding transforms the way you interact with the world. It's the difference between being well-informed and truly knowledgeable. And once you start reading with this mindset, every book, article, and piece of content becomes an opportunity not just to learn, but to grow.